Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 22 playthrough of the New York Yankees. We are preparing for the start of the 2030 offseason. Unfortunately, we finished second in the AL East, so we will be hosting the wild card game against the Texas Rangers. Walker Buehler, who was one of our big free agent acquisitions this offseason, is out with a sore elbow for the next 3 days, so he's certainly not going to be available for the game tomorrow, but hopefully will be available if we win for a future playoff run. And still waiting to see what happens with an injury to Seizo Murakami, the only other injured person that we have. So we were going to take a quick look at the playoff roster and kind of let you know any changes we make as we get ready for that critical one-game playoff hosting the Rangers. Well, we just simmed ahead one day, and we did find out Murakami's injury diagnosis, going to be out with an oblique strain for 5 to 6 weeks. So he is clearly out for the duration of the playoffs, so we are going to obviously take him off of the playoff roster. And for this one game, we are actually going to bring up an extra bat. Eric Becker, kind of a utility infielder, spent a little time on the major league team this season, but for the one game, we'll have 14 bats, 12 pitchers, which will certainly hopefully not even use a fraction of those 12, but we'll have the extra bat on the bench to hopefully, be there in a pinch and give manager Regi Corona what he needs in terms of lineup flexibility to prepare for this big game. But we are ready to host Texas in the one-game wild card. As I mentioned, we are in 2030, but we're playing OOTP 22, and we have not yet updated the new playoff format that's going to be going into effect very shortly when the 2022 real Major League season actually gets started, but certainly when we're hopefully playing OOTP 23 in a few weeks, the new playoff format and all of the big moves that have been made in Major League in recent weeks will be reflected there. But on to our game and playoff coverage. Jeff Hackinson, our versatile pitcher, only as you can see a 35 stamina, and he's started 30 games a year for us for the past several seasons, but 150 to 165 kind of innings a season. He is the definition of a 5-inning pitcher, but if he can give us 5 good innings and get into our bullpen, apparently that's what our manager Regi Corona thinks is the right way to play this, even though we certainly have several starters who have more stamina and are making a lot more money. Got to go with what the manager says. And we're going to be going against Rodrigo Reyna, 22-year-old rookie, 9-11 with a 4.71 ERA. But you look at the profile of this young pitcher, certainly very good stuff, very good movement, very good control. 3 excellent pitches. The issue is that fourth pitch, his changeup, not particularly good yet, but he is the number 3 ranked prospect in baseball right now. So we will see how the lefty does against the Yankees here. Rangers were second in the AL in scoring, but 9th in runs against. Our Yankees were 5th in the AL in scoring, but 3rd in runs against. So we have, on paper, the better pitching staff if we can get into the bullpen. We also won 93 games as opposed to the 86 by the Rangers. So 7 games better than the Rangers in the regular season. But whether this win now Yankees team continues on in their quest for a World Series all comes down to today. And the Yankees season is over. 2-1 victory for the Rangers. Yankees were win now this season. Made 4 big free agent acquisitions. Incredibly disappointing end to the season for the Yankees to not only not win the World Series, but also not even win our division and not even play more than 1 game in the playoffs. So that is the end of the playing for the Yankees this year. Definitely a big bummer. Reyna was excellent. He gave them 5 innings, 1 earned run, and then Southard and Vasquez really shut us down over the last 4 innings. Hackinson kind of did his job, 2 earned runs in 5 1/3 innings, turned it over to the bullpen, and Mahoney and Wallace were both shut down, allowing only 1 hit and no walks over the final 3 2/3 innings. But the Yankees offense was not able to do much of anything. Only 6 hits, and Bellinger drove in Cronin for the only run we scored. So very disappointing season for the Yankees. We will see what management, or actually more accurately ownership, has to say about that when we review goals with them at the end of the season. But barely made the playoffs, didn't upgrade first base satisfactorily to what they wanted, which is actually a little bit disappointing because we did make the acquisition for Michael Busch. He didn't hit great for us down the stretch, only a 76 OPS plus, but good defensive first baseman who actually is on the roster as opposed to the injured Mountcastle. So interesting that that they still factor in Mountcastle as the big addition we made there. We have improved attendance, but the critical thing that they are not going to be happy about is that we are $76 million above the budget they want us to be at, $180 million. And because of that, we don't have any money available for extensions. So going to be a very interesting offseason for the Yankees, assuming that we haven't upset ownership so much that we're not the ones making our upcoming decisions in the offseason. But before we get to that, we are going to continue simming through and see how the playoffs go, see if there are any minor roster moves that we can potentially make in the coming weeks to potentially open up a little bit of cash, and then see what happens with the postseason awards and our actual job security. Well, looking at the playoffs, after the Rangers picked us off, they picked off the best team in the American League, the Orioles, who had beat us in the AL East before they did finally fall to the Angels. Coming out of the National League, the Braves wiped out the Cubs in the division series and then a hard-fought series against the Padres. The Angels are now up 3-2 here in early November as we get ready to finish up the season. And the Los Angeles Angels, world champions, defeating the Braves 10-2 in the final game of the series, Game 6. Danny Lozano, a young shortstop who looks like he's quite an impressive player. Wow, look at that. Excellent contact, good gap power, great home run power, decent eye, excellent at avoiding Ks. And he is just a brilliant defensive shortstop, except for his arm, which is still above average. That is one heck of a young player for the Angels, and you can see he has had a rousing start to his career. Very impressive. 30 homers plus, 100 RBIs plus every year, and his OPS plus has gone from 108 to 116 to 119 to 160 this season. So he just won a World Series MVP. Not going to shock me if he also wins another Gold Glove and perhaps also gets his first Most Valuable Player award when we get to the postseason awards. Well, we just moved on to the off season. It's kind of interesting when you look at our history here over the 9 seasons now that we have been the general manager. Made the playoffs in 7 of those seasons, won the AL East in 5 in a row before finishing second and being the wild card team each of the last 2 seasons, and we did win that one World Series. But our score for this past season of 959, I do not really understand. We got a pop-up that said it's an astronomical score and we are an OOTP genius, which I appreciate. But I don't really understand how a 93-69 season where we lost in the wild card game, second in our division, somehow generated the highest score that we've had through this playthrough. So if anyone has thoughts on that below, would love to hear them. Happy that OOTP thinks I'm a genius, but certainly not feeling that way after a fourth consecutive year of not winning the World Series, not even making it to the World Series. Looking at the off season that we're going to have coming up, we have option decisions on a bunch of critical players: Cody Bellinger, Lance McCullers, Ryan Mountcastle, and Christian Javier. We'll be talking through those shortly. Not surprisingly, Brad Kreider is unhappy with what we've done, angry with our performance. Overall mood with our performance is unhappy. He did give us a one-year contract extension at $1.6 million. Generally, I have found in OOTP, when you get those $1.6 million, or when you get those one-year extensions, generally not a great sign for your long-term viability. And he wants us to. He has cut our team budget to $298 million. So that is a pretty significant cut to our budget. And that only allows us a $220 million payroll. Now, clearly, he wants us to be even lower than that. His goal is to still get the payroll down to $180 million from its current $254 million-ish. So very interesting. His goals for us for next season are to not suck completely, which is absolutely achievable with the roster that we have, but also to cut the payroll to $180 million. Clearly, on a one-year contract, I have no intention of doing it. If I'm going to get fired next season for not getting to the $180 million payroll, I'm going to try to make another run at the championship. So that is the way we're thinking about things as we head into this off season. But he's clearly not pleased that we had a big loss last season when we were spending tons of money and we only got to host that one playoff game. And as we get into making our option year decisions, we'll take a look at how those players performed. Cody Bellinger, who was a big trade for us when we first took over the sim, signed him to a big extension, and then another big extension. He is at the end of his 5 years with us, was paid $30 million this year. We've got a team option for $25 million for him next season. And he is coming off just a great season. 49 homers, 126 RBIs, hit 273, 907 OPS, 138 OPS plus, 141 WRC plus, and a 7.1 WAR. So clearly we are going to bring back Mr. Bellinger for next year when he will be turning 36 years old for us. So we are going to execute that option. Lance McCullers Jr., another one of our key starters, made $19 million this past year at 37 years old. He's fragile at this point. Started 20 games for us, but you can see over the last 3 years, just 23, 13, and 20 starts. But he was 7-2 in those 20 starts with a 1.88 ERA plus for us. Struck out 97 batters in 96 innings, put up a 3 WAR. He's still above average in terms of the basic pitching ratings, but his pitches are not as great. He still has 5 pitches, but really the sinker and the slider are his only plus pitches. Cutter and curveball pretty average, and changeup, maybe even a little below average, down to a 45 stamina. So this is going to be a more interesting decision for us. The reason I think I probably will extend it is simply that when you look at our budget right now, we have no money for free agents and no money for extensions, and we're only going to have $220 million available for payroll. So even if we were to avoid that $20 million contract, it's not going to open up any more money for us to do anything this offseason. We're going to be way over budget, stuck with who we have, and not able to sign any players to extensions regardless, unless we, decline additional options. McCullers Jr. alone is not going to get us to where we need to be. Looking at the roster, fortunately, we have most of our players signed for next season. The big loss is that Francisco Alvarez, who we had traded away and then ended up re-signing as a free agent, is going to be the one player that we lose if we do extend all of these options, because we're not going to have money to bring him back on board. So the question ultimately is going to come down to, if we let go of McCullers, Javier Jr., and Ryan Mountcastle, we will probably just about have enough money to maybe re-sign Alvarez, but then we're not doing anything else. So as much as I would love to keep Alvarez on the team, slightly above average offensive player who is a very good defensive catcher, we're probably going to have to let him go again, which is kind of crazy. But it is what it is. Other option year decision, Christian Javier, $16 million for next season. He's coming off a really nice season for us after having some injury issues in 28 and 29, when he only started 25 games and then 10 games. Led the league with 34 starts this year, went 13-9, 125 ERA plus. Led the league in WHIP, led the league in BABIP, so that, he potentially will regress a little bit next season, but still 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 2.2 WAR. He's fragile, probably going to get banged up again, but we are a win-now team, so I think we probably bring him back too. Mountcastle is the interesting one, or one of many interesting ones, quite honestly, but still out for another 3 months with that ruptured MCL. Had played well for us in 2029 and then didn't do a heck of a lot in the limited time he was up with us this year, although he did hit 324 before he got hurt, but only over 74 at-bats. I'd be inclined to let him go, simply because we do have Blake Klassen at first base, who had a really nice year for us, which we'll talk about later, and then also Nick Gonzalez, who can play first base for us. Michael Bush, we're going to lose. He's going to be a free agent, so we certainly could use him back, but in a perfect world, I probably would not bring Mountcastle back at that $4.7 million, but because we're in a situation where even if we cut him, we're so far over what our budget is going to be that it's not going to open up any more money for us to spend. I think we just kind of run him back at $4.7 million next year, hope he's healthy for the spring, and basically go back with the exact same roster that we had this season, with the exception that we're going to lose Alvarez. So Kerner, who was in AAA this entire past season, but is a decent defensive catcher, plus defensive catcher, but a little bit of a below average bat, will come up and join Siegler on the major league roster as our two catchers. Siegler will go back to being the starter that he was when Alvarez got injured in the 2029 season. So I think I've thought this through and made my decision. Even if we were to cut both McCullers and Javier, not pick up their options, that's going to save us about $36 million, which would take us down to $217 million. So we would be cutting two excellent, albeit injury-prone, starting pitchers to open up only about a few $1 million that we could potentially spend to replace him. So I think the goal at this point is just to bring back all of the people that we have on option years and just enrage ownership in terms of the amount of money that we're going to spend. So we're going to execute the options on Javier and McCullers, and now because of that, cutting Mountcastle is not going to give us any additional any additional money to spend. So execute the option on him too, bring him back. There's nothing saying that when we get to the off season, we can't make some massive number of trades if we really decide we want to get under budget. But right now, it doesn't seem like we have any hope of doing that. So the fact that we had those players on potential option years is going to, I don't know if it's game the system at least, but, although our available money for payroll next year is only going to be $220 million. The fact that we had those players on team options is going to allow us to be way above that, which, again, ownership is not going to be happy with, because we're going to be spending another $70 million plus above what they hope. But hey, we're on a 1-year contract. They're already very angry with us. The goal is to go on a long run and win a World Series. Not going to play ball with them as far as cutting payroll. Sorry, Brad. And actually, as I'm thinking about this, we obviously can't offer a contract to Alvarez, but I can submit a qualifying offer to him. And if he accepts that, that's just going to make our payroll go even higher above what we have budgeted. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when we have all of this money dumped. If he accepts that, if he accepts the qualifying offer from us, which is a 100% plus raise for him, the issue is going to be that given that our budget has been cut to $298 million, we're going to end up, our scouting budget and our development budgets could both get shattered, and we may not have any money to essentially even use for the, draft and international free agent budget. I'm guessing at some point the game is going to make us balance the budget, probably after we get through salary arbitration and the year kind of officially flips to the upcoming season, because you can see that right now, when we look at the front office, we've still got all of our 2030 salaries here that they're calculating. But when we get to the point where it flips over to 2031, that's probably where the massive amount that we are over our $220 million that we have available for player payroll is going to manifest itself in our scouting, development, international free agent, and draft budgets being absolutely decimated. But given that we are all in on the 2031 season, it is what it is. We are going for it at the major league level now. If it means that our minor league system is going to be a little more barren, so be it. And it's kind of interesting, the predicament that we've gotten ourselves into in terms of the salary situation. You look at Garrett Edwards, expected to get about $11 million this year in arbitration, about $15.5 million next offseason. We would normally, potentially be trying to extend him right now. He's a normal injury proneness, just a really nice profile. Did miss a little time with us this year, was not as great as he was in his first season with the team, but certainly somebody that we would want to offer a long contract to. He's looking for $12.4 million this year. Let's just watch this error out on us. If we offer him $12 million this year, 15 next year, and then 16 as we buy out a free agency year. Probably wouldn't go for this anyways, but of course our owner does not approve the deal because our projected payroll exceeds our budget by $25.948 million, almost $26 million. So he's looking for 12.4 arbitration for us. I remember it was in the low 11s. Need to go back and look at that because I am just going to try to save a little bit of money where and when I can save it. I think he's going to make about 11.2, so I'm going to see if it's even going to allow us to make a offer to him outside of arbitration because we are so far over payroll. So let's just see if it even lets us do that. He's looking for 12.4. We think he's worth 11.2. I'm going to offer him even a little less than that at just 11 million for next season. Okay, and he is going to potentially accept that offer. So as long as we're offering the salary arbitration guys, we can still at least offer 1-year contracts too. So I don't know why I care so much about saving that 250,000 on him, because we're way over budget anyways. There's no possible way that we're going to clear up enough money to do anything this off season. Looking at this group, Murakami has been so injury prone that in a normal year, where we were kind of trying to have money to spend in the postseason, we would potentially not extend him. He's going to be 37 years old next season, and he is fragile when we brought him over from Japan and brought him on as a free agent. But because we can't do anything else in the off season, because we're going to be so far over budget, I think we're going to definitely make offers to every one of our arbitration eligible players, and again, just try to run this team back with everybody except for Alvarez. And then if Alvarez accepts that qualifying offer, we're just going to have, practically no money possible to spend on scouting and player development in the minors, but we are going to have basically the same roster back as we try to improve off of this year and make a run at the World Series in the 2031 season. Would definitely be interested in thoughts from those who are watching as to whether what we're doing makes sense or if there's a different alternative. As I said, we'd have to get rid of so many players to get back under budget and be able to do anything in free agency that I think it makes the most sense just to extend these options, bring back all the arbitration eligible players, make the qualifying offer to Alvarez, and run things back next year with who we have right now. So yeah, we've made offers to all of our arbitration eligible players, and we've also submitted the qualifying offer for Alvarez. So we're going to continue simming through. Hopefully they will all accept the offers, come back, and the goal is that we run this back next year with the exact team that we had. Looks like Klassen, Benbrook, Gonzalez, Hartle, Salas, importantly Edwards, and yes, even the injury-prone Murakami have all already signed. Still waiting to hear from Jared Mahoney, so that would be a nice addition if we can bring him back also. Imagine we'll be hearing from him soon. Yep, we got Mahoney back also, so we don't have anybody going through arbitration now at this point. Alvarez, we've got the qualifying offer. If it doesn't work out, then we, are going to be going with Siegler and who was our AAA guy? Kerner. Yeah, Siegler and Kerner will be our starters or our catchers next year if Alvarez doesn't sign the qualifying offer for us. Hopefully he will. So it's going to be a real quiet off season. But before we get to that, let's take a quick look at what the Yankees actually did on the field this past year. It was not as good as some of the seasons we've had. You can see we were off to a great start. April we were excellent. May we were good, but then June kind of just slipped to 500, bounced back in July. But then even August and September, only 15-13 both months, and then we're 500 in October. And then obviously with the loss in the wild card game, ended up a game below 500 for October when it really mattered. But the offense was good. We can see second, third, fifth, fourth, first in a lot of categories. The only thing that we were really no good in was stolen bases with only 42. But our base running, plus 26.3, we actually ran well on the bases, just didn't run that frequently in terms of trying to steal. And then our pitching, top 3, top 4 in just about every category out there. Defensive efficiency good, zone rating good. So a nice season overall for the Yankees. You would think normally when you're fifth in the league in runs scored like we were, and second or third in runs allowed, you're going to definitely win your division with a record like that. But it just didn't turn out that way for us. The expanded standings show that we were should have been 2 games better according to the Pythagorean projections, but wasn't going to be enough to get us the division. So a weird season for these Yankees. Kind of looking at the offensive players, Bo Bichette has been, fantastic for us. Another really good year, 28 homers, 83 ribbies, 111 runs scored. Batted .299, 130 OPS plus for us. Excellent defensive shortstop. Although, as we saw with the young player from the Angels, who just won the World Series MVP award, probably going to be a little more difficult for Bichette to continue adding to his hardware in terms of Silver Sluggers and Gold Glove awards. We already talked about the great year Bellinger had when we extended him. Both of those guys were 7+ WAR, huge players for us. Shiku Shu has been a fantastic player ever since we picked him up as an international free agent. 37 homers, 93 ribbies this year, 126 OPS plus. Just a great bat to have in the middle of our order. Brian Reynolds, one of the free agent acquisitions from last year. Solid season, 22 homers, 89 ribbies, 287 average, 121 OPS plus. He is a fragile player and did miss 20 games for us over the course of the year. Good clubhouse presence, happy to have him on board. And then the other big free agent acquisition for our offense last year, Jake Cronin. Similar season, 22 homers, 68 ribbies, only batted .275 for a 109 OPS plus. So at 37 years old next year, it looks like Cronenworth may be starting to slow down a little bit, but still going to be our starting third baseman next season by virtue of his contract and the fact that we're not going to have money to sign anybody else. Alvarez had a nice year for us. We've talked about him. We'll see what happens with the qualifying offer. And then Blake Klassen at first base with the injury to Mountcastle got the most playing time he's ever gotten as a 30-year-old. 34 homers, 71 runs batted in, 129 OPS plus. So a nice season for the left-hander with some power. Jose Montoya, the young second baseman, excellent defensive player. Love the spark plug personality on the field and in the clubhouse. You can see he continues to improve a little bit, but in getting closer to his peak. Looks like he could be slightly above average as a contact hitter, slightly above average in terms of his home run power if he continues to develop. A slightly better offensive season for him in his first full year in the majors. His batting average went up to .236 from .227. OPS went up to .625 from .611. And his OPS plus actually went down to .67 from .69. So we would like to see a little more offense from him. Hopefully if he can get to that 55 contact and that 60 home run power, he is a plus starter for us, but at the very least, over the long term, would be an incredible utility infielder given how good he is defensively and the fact that he looks like he can hopefully eventually be a major league average type hitter, even though he hasn't quite produced at that level yet. Nick Gonzalez, kind of played a utility role, sometime first baseman, sometime second baseman, sometime DH, even got a little bit of action, I think, at third base for us. Could actually tell you that if I looked. Yeah, he played at both first, second, and third for us in the field this past season. So a nice utility player for us with a plus bat. The big disappointment offensively, clearly you can see Michael Bush, who we brought over, was a minus .5 WAR with us. So that was disappointing for the guy that we brought over. 7 homers, 18 ribbies in 58 games with us after we traded for him. But we didn't give up much. Not a loss there. But Jason Dominguez has regressed a little bit in terms of his batting profile, and you can see is going to be 28 next year, so unlikely that we're going to see any major improvement there. We thought that having Aaron Judge go away would, at the very least, allow him to continue playing regularly, perhaps a little more often in the outfield or at DH where he had been for most of his career. But with the way our roster looked in the signing of Brian Reynolds and him kind of regressing a bit, after starting his career with 4 straight 30 home run seasons, he only got 210 at-bats this past year, 6 homers, 29 ribbies, a brutal 58 OPS plus as he hit just 200 and slugged just 357 for a 596 OPS, minus .7 WAR. So I think the hope is that he can bounce back and at least be something between what it looked like he was going to be those first 4 years in the majors and what he did for us there this season at age 27. At the very least, hopefully he is a good 4th outfielder for us and, potentially a part-time DH, a good guy to have, coming off the bench. But it doesn't look like Dominguez's career is going to go in the same direction we would have thought it might 2 or 3 seasons ago. And now turning to the pitching. As you know from, if you did watch our last episode, the issue with the pitching was just that it spent so much time on the injured list. We've talked about Mccullers. We extended him. Garrett Edwards, had one of the healthier seasons for us, but still only pitched 25 games, 12-7, 1.24 ERA plus. We've talked about Javier, did have a healthy season. We extended him. Hackinson was healthy, although bummer that he lost that playoff game, but he pitched well for us. Josh Hartle put up a 1.9 WAR, kind of a swing man for us, although with the injuries, he actually only had 3 games in relief. Normally, in a perfect world, we would want him, maybe pitching 40 games for us and 10 starts when people are injured. But the injuries were so bad this year that he was a pretty irregular member of the rotation. Went 12-9 with a league average ERA plus. Looking at the rest of the team, Wallace, our closer, 1-4 record, but 35 saves with a 2.23 ERA. Jared Mahoney, his ERA spiked up to 3.91 this past season, and his BABIP was actually a little lower than it had been the previous 2 seasons. So interesting whether he just got lucky those past 2 seasons or this was the season that is more of what he usually is. But certainly happy to have his sound, versatile arm and really good stuff back for another season with us next year for the former supplemental number 1 draft choice of ours. Daniel Salas, 3.92 ERA. Carter Benbrook, 4.12. He started 4 games for us, relieved 40, pitched 47 total, so he relieved for us 43 times. The disappointment was Walker Buehler, and it was not that he wasn't good for us when he pitched. It was just that he didn't pitch that much. Only 12 games, 5 different injuries. And you can see that the 36-year-old is now officially wrecked after all of the injuries he had this past season. So we only have him 2 years more, $15 million next year, and then we actually have a team option on him for 2032. So we insulated ourselves pretty well with that contract, I think, knowing that he had a high injury risk. The issue is with all of the injuries that he had this year. And the fact that he's now wrecked, his stuff is really only average. Still, hopefully, we'll have a little better than average movement and good control, and the 5-pitch arsenal of average to slightly above average pitches. Hopefully, he can produce for us well next year, but certainly not the pitcher he was a few years ago. So those are the highlights of how the key players on our team did over the past season. Again, it doesn't seem like the sum was greater than the parts for the Yankees this year. A really weird year given how many players we had who had kind of solid seasons for us, particularly with the bat. So hopefully running back a very similar lineup next year, the team will produce similar results even as the batters and the offense gets another year older. And then the hope is that the pitching staff is healthier next season, which is obviously a hope because generally as everyone gets a year older, they're not going to be getting healthier and avoiding the IL. But that is the hope for us as we try to take back the division from the Orioles next year. And we're starting to get into award season. You can see we did win one Gold Glove. Jose Montoya, our young second baseman, definitely delivering the defense we would love to see at any position, and he's very versatile. The hope is that he develops his bat enough to be a really above-average major league player. The best AL reliever, Tim Wallace, our closer, finished fourth in the voting, but well behind Eddie Cajero from Tampa Bay. Silver Sluggers, only one for the Yankees this year. Cody Bellinger, the only Silver Slugger award for the Yankees. Not a shock with 49 homers and 126 runs batted in for the season. You can see that Lozano, the shortstop who just won World Series MVP for the Angels, won a Silver Slugger to go with his Gold Glove. So he is going to definitely be a threat for the MVP award when we get to that point. And Rookie of the Year, nobody on the Yankees in contention for that award. Well, before we finish the wrap-up of the season, we'll take a look at the last couple of awards. Our rookie manager, Reggie Corona, AL Best Manager, Skipper of the Year. Little surprising given that we underperformed, but glad to see that Reggie and his unorthodox managing style still attracted the attention of the voters with how the Yankees performed on the field. Moving on to the last few awards. Cy Young Award in the AL, Sam Geddes. Javier, who pitched that whole season, finished third. McCullers was sixth. And that was it for the Yankees in the voting. So a nice year from Christian Javier and Lance McCullers, and we, feeling better about exercising the options on both of them, who finished in the top 6 in the AL Cy Young Award voting. And moving on to the MVP awards. Mike Orozco of the Angels wins it. 24 first-place votes. And look at that season for the third baseman, and you can understand it a bit. 51 homers, 135 runs batted in, and a .332 batting average. Put up a 10.3 WAR for Mike Orozco. So the Angels with him and third place finisher Danny Lozano, who won the World Series MVP, also got a first place vote. As you can see, Wander Franco, .383 batting average, and finished second in the MVP voting. Among the Yankees, Bellinger was fifth, Bo Bichette was seventh, and Shiku Shu finished just outside the top 10, but did get some votes for MVP. And even here in the 2030 season, look at this. Mike Trout still getting a vote here and there as he plays for the Angels. Wonder what his career stats look at 39 years old. And he is one home run away from 600 home runs for Mr. Trout in his career. .287 career hitter. Over the last few years, not what he was at the beginning of his career, but he's 39 years old now. And still put up a 5.3 WAR in his 38-year-old season this year. So interesting to see Mr. Trout and the massive number of awards he has that are filling up the entire wall behind him. So with that, we will call this a wrap on the 2030 season recap for the Yankees. Going to be headed into next year with likely a very similar roster. Will be interesting to see what the financials work like. We'll probably spend some time talking about that in our off-season episode. Would love to make some changes on the margins as we try to get our roster ready for hopefully a run at the World Series next year and what could be our last year with the Yankees, given the tenuous position that we're in with ownership and the fact that we're going to thumb our noses at their request for us to cut spending. But we will deal with the offseason first in our next episode. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.